Steve Magnante here at High Octane Classics in Auburn, Massachusetts, with a classic Ford Mustang, but some would maybe dispute that. It's a 1972, the final iteration, 71, 72, and 73 of the big, full-sized, some would say bloated Mustangs. We'll get to that in a second. But these were special cars. It's a Mach 1. We see the hood and, of course, the detail paint on the hood insert, the Argent, and the factory installed rubber bumper on the front, which was a concession to federal bumper safety standards. Kind of goofy, but true. That's correct on the front. No chrome bumpers on the front of these. Speaking of chrome, the 15x7 Magnum 500 wheels on all four corners are an option from the factory. Great looking wheels of all muscle cars, really fantastic. But again, being a Mach 1, it should be the performance model, right? Well, what we don't see on the side of the hood is the word Ram Air or 429, which were things that were available, but not in a base Mach 1. Getting to the base part, we'll open the hood and find out what that is. Now keep in mind, 1971 was the first year that the 429 canted valve big block was available in a Mustang, but 72, 73 strictly small block powered cars. And speaking of small blocks, 1974 brought in the Mustang 2, which is definitely controversial. Not a whole lot of love for those things. 4-lug wheels, 4-cylinder engines, V6s, no V8s until 1975. It was the OPEC MPG, EPA stuff that was really taking the Mustang down a different road based on a Pinto. But these are large and in charge. Now, the wheelbase on this generation of Mustang is 109 inches, only 1 inch longer than the 1970 Mustang, so it seems like it's longer. It's only 1 inch, but the body itself is longer in every way. It's wider. Now, Bunky Knudsen was a GM executive. He was hired by Henry Ford II, and basically Knudsen's thing at GM was making cars bigger, wider, more impressive, and heavier. So when he got to Ford, he said, we're going to redesign the Mustang, and this is the result, Bunky Knudsen's enlarged Mustang. Now, Knudsen didn't last long at Ford. He and Henry Ford, the Deuce, had major conflicts of attitude and personality, so Knudsen was gone, but his mark was left behind in the form of these big Mustangs. Let's look under the hood and see what exactly Mach 1 means in this case. Now, under the NACA duct hood, this is standard stuff on the Mach 1, would be a V8, always a V8 on the Mach 1. But here's the thing, 1972, the 302 two-barrel became the standard base engine in the Mach 1. No 6 cylinders, but for 1970 and before, 69 and 70, the Mach 1 came standard with a 351 or bigger. So 1971, the writing was on the wall, the EPA stuff, the cafe. So under the hood of this one, let's see what we have. Let's open the hood and take a peek. Okay, and up we go. Okay, yeah, this is the 302 with a 2-barrel carburetor, the F code engine, and F, of course, is the digit for the engine in the 5th spot of the VIN. And this does have a little aftermarket touch here. This is the cold air duct, and I'm not sure that the 302 2-barrel could be had with that. The hood scoops appear to be functional, but these would have been blocked off on a standard 302 2-barrel basic Mach 1 Mustang. So probably reproduction stuff that's been added to it. It's nice, it's not fiberglass, it's steel. So it looks the part, but again, that is probably not a factory installed item. I like it. It certainly is a better thing to have than underhood air, which is warm and a little less dense and, you know, perhaps a little less potent for making the power. This is probably a 210 horsepower engine right here. That's net power. This would have been 220 horsepower, 230, 240 back in the 60s, but again, 210 net horsepower. So no ball of fire. And again, these Mustangs were heavier than the previous Mustangs, probably 3,700 pounds as we see it here. No air conditioning on this one. It's a power steering. And it's a manual brake car, no power booster here. That's okay. And this has drum brakes up front, which is crazy. You know, most people think, oh, Mach 1's got to have discs up front. Well, no, this one is a basic 10-inch drum car, front and rear. So those brakes will certainly do the job. And the good news is that 302 is a small enough and light enough engine to where it's not going to be too badly nose heavy. But again, the 429 cars of 1971 would have disc brakes up front and power boosters almost certainly. So and again, a nice presentation under the hood. The Autolite style battery right here, the Autolite Stay Full, and that is it's a factory reproduction battery which looks the part, good for points. And again, the underhood of this is, it's funny how far the nose of this car precedes the engine block, like that much. And there's a fan shroud here to keep the coolant, you know, cooling air focused on bringing the air through the radiator core and keeping the engine cool. Now, how about the transmission? Could there be a 4-speed or an automatic? What do we got? Let's go inside and look. Well, like previous Mustangs, the 71 through 73 were available as convertibles, coupes, and fastbacks. More on the fastback in a second. All of them had bucket seats up front and a back seat that was minimally capable of handling 3 people. It's basically a 4-seat car, but inside there's no center console. In this one, there's a shift console here. Here's the automatic transmission, so no 4-speed or manual in this one. It's basically a basic Mach 1 302 2-barrel car. The 351 was an option, the 351 4-barrel was an option, and 2-barrel was an option, but again, no 429s on the other side of the firewall after 1971. So nicely done inside though, very crisp, nicely detailed. The dash pad is soft and pliable, no cracks, looking pretty good. The speedometer on these goes to 120 miles an hour. The days of the Shelby with the 140 mile an hour speedometers were over by 1971, 72, 73, as you know, the emissions and the safety thing really kicked into high gear. With that said, this is a 3-speed automatic. It's not a 4-speed overdrive AOD, which would arrive about 10 years later in the 1980s. So a nice piece. One modern thing we see right here is a modern CD player, an Alpine, I believe that is, a little modern sound system in this one. But again, it's not an air-conditioned car, just a basic heater and cooler inside. But the backseat passenger on this one, you either sit on the transmission tunnel, the driveshaft tunnel right there, or make room for your legs and just try to be comfortable on a long ride. But see that rear window and that package tray? It is huge. Why is that? Because of the fastback roofline is the most extreme, or was the most extreme in the industry. Almost, I wouldn't say it's a 90 degree or 100, it's a flat one, but it's darn close. To do a 3.2 and look out the back of these is difficult. You almost park by crunch, if you know what I'm saying. So it's tough. You have to be a giraffe to look out of the back of these. But with that said, if you're a backseat passenger, there was a slat package, the aluminum slats that would cover this up and keep your back safe from the sun. Not seen here, but a very sanitary look and just really a beautiful design, but big, thanks to William Knudsen, the GM employee who went to Ford and put his stamp on all Ford products. We'd be gone by 1974, Knudsen would. Another classic thing here is the trunk spoiler, which was an option from the factory, and it doesn't help rear with visibility. You look out the trunk and you see that thing right there out the back window. But, you know, it's a classy touch, and again, Mach 1 is a reference to the speed limit, a speed barrier, if you will, I think 660 miles per hour, where you break the sound barrier in a jet plane or an aircraft of any kind. The Mach 1 Mustang is named after that effect, but this is not going to be a Mach 1 capable car, ever. But anyway, I like the honeycomb effect on the back, which was a standard detail on the Mach 1. Let's take a look inside of the trunk. We go into the compartment and see what kind of volume there is. And you got to keep in mind, there's an awful lot of room under the backlight or the rear window. And you can get the room, you can utilize that room as long as what you're putting in there is not a refrigerator or a casket or anything tall. But you can get a lot of grain in there, a lot of air in there. But again, it's an odd design where, you know, form and function sometimes go hand in hand. But on these ones, these Mustangs, the fastbacks, form was the rule and the boss, and function was a secondary concern. But, you know, you didn't buy a Mustang back then to cram your family of 10 into it, trying to get to you know, National Lampoon's Vacation in style. So these are fun cars for fun people. One thing that's kind of neat about this is the original factory spare tire and wheel. You know, the aftermarket, well, they're optional. The 15x8 Magnum 500s are an add-on. They're classic, but this is the original 15x7 steel wheel with trim ring. You would have been a little center cap in here that said Ford, and the original Super Sports wide oval Firestone tire is still in place. There it is right there. The tread is not too bad on that. And here's 83, I think was the tire code in the grease pencil marking that alerted the people on the tire line at the Ford Dearborn plant where this thing was built. There'd be a whole hundreds of tires. They'd roll down, and if it said 83, that meant into a Mustang Mach 1 with the Super Sports wide oval tire. And getting back to those tires, let's go around to the car. And this does have a set of Goodyear tires, which are certainly an option. You could have these, they're a day 2 touch, but again, G6015, great looking wheel. And this is it's a base car, so there's an 8-inch rear axle almost certainly between those those drums, 10-inch drums, no discs on the back until much later, the SVO Mustang of the 1980s. But again, the front discs on this would have been an option, but this is a four-wheel drum car, no problem. You're not going to go Mach 1 in a 210 horsepower Mustang. And in 1973, things get even, I wouldn't say even worse, but they basically detuned the engine even more. I think 180 horsepower was the number. So they were basically looking for insurance surcharge, deleting or getting away from insurance surcharges. And again, the Mach 1 was considered a performance car, but not with a 302 two-barrel under the hood. But the insurance agents didn't know that. They saw the Mach 1, they figured that's going to be a high-risk car. Here's a surcharge for you, young man. But anyway, it's a great-looking car, well preserved. Love the green and the silver striping on the side, which is reflective at night. If you drive up and shine a light on this right here, it's a white reflector, which is a very cool safety touch. That was kind of the point of it. Of course, the Mach 1 branding right here on the front fenders. And the spoiler and the chin spoiler on this thing is argent colored, silver sort of. And it's once again, it's a plastic material. So you can, hit a curb with it gently and not fracture it or bend a steel front fender or front airfoil or oil spoiler lip. There you go, spoiler. And so here it is, 1972, the next to the last year for the large, full-sized, if you will, Mustang. 1974 would bring the Pinto-based Mustang II, which could be had in 75 with a 302 two-barrel, but before that, in 1974, the debut year, V6 or four-cylinder engine. Believe it or not, the sales of the first Mustang II in 1974 rivaled the miracle of the 64.5 Mustang. They sold very well, 65. And 74, believe it or not, a lot of people fell for the hype. I wouldn't say that, but the EPA, the fuel economy thing was a big deal. So 1974 Mustang II, sales were strong, and they fell each year after that, but not a dud altogether. But next to the last of the family of the full-size Mustangs, we can thank Bunky Knudsen for inflating the Mustang when he got there from GM. And of course, this is the result of Bunky Knudsen's tenure at Ford, which didn't last long, but he left his mark. If you want to see more about this car, you can go to the High-Octane Classics website and see the photo gallery on this 1972 Mustang 302 two-barrel Mach 1.